I'm Orla Dempsey, primary school teacher and the teacher promotion mentor. Just a few years ago, I was teaching in a small rural school and I took the career break that changed my life. In 2017, I launched my small business. I learned how to lead it in new ways. I stepped outside my comfort zone and I managed my own organisation, and I led it to 6 figures in 2023. I'm a specialist in the Looking at Our School document. If you're a growth-oriented teacher and you believe that education can transform lives, the Growth in Education and Leadership podcast will help you. This podcast will empower you to transform your experience and your qualifications into the role of your dreams. People's stories are very powerful. I first became interested in people's stories when I became a coach. And I realized that the stories that we told ourselves have direct results in the kinds of opportunities that we have and the kind of results that we get. So there's a huge mindset associated with storytelling, the STAR technique, and the empowering beliefs that we have about ourselves. With the STAR technique, it is a framework that you can use to frame your answers and your stories in interviews in an empowering way. So the way that you use language using the STAR technique is a very important skill and important mindset to get into. So we're here today to talk about 10 confidence tips for the STAR leadership interviews. Leadership interviews are competency-based interviews and teaching interviews are competency-based interviews. That means that the job of the interview panel is to check that you are competent. And the way that you will show them that you're competent is the fact that you have already done that task or that competency that they are asking and questioning you about. So it's very important to have what I call little stories into your content bucket, using a growth mindset to kind of pick and select the most interesting and impressive stories that you have from your career. So number one, in terms of confidence tips around the STAR technique for leadership interviews. The first one is understand the STAR method. Situation is the S. The situation was I did have a tricky situation with a colleague. So you're telling them straight out that you agree, that you have that competency, and then you move into your task and your action. That's the body of the STAR technique, where you're explaining the different steps that you took in order to develop that competency and resolve the situation, or to frame the competency in that story. And then R stands for result. That is where you're going to show that as a teacher, you're a reflective practitioner and you're thinking back over the benefits or the reasons why it was a good idea that you've developed that competency or that you dealt with the situation. So getting to know the STAR technique is a very important technique. I found when I was starting to do mock interviews with teachers, they would say things like, I believe this and and that. They're not actually giving me the evidence that's required. So they might stand on their soapbox and say, X, Y, or Z, and it's very important, and saying a lot without actually saying much of evidence or much of value to the interviewer's perspective. So that's number one. Understand how to use the STAR method or the STAR technique. You can YouTube it. You can go on. I'm sure I have a podcast where I was talking about the STAR technique on Spotify. Obviously, you're here on the podcast as well. So there is lots of different ways, books, podcasts, etc. You can learn about how to utilize the STAR technique. Number two, reflect on your achievements. Your achievements would be very helpful to frame your results in the STAR technique and also to build your confidence. It is really important to look back over the course of your career to date, to get your blinkers on, to remember the fact that you've had many, many successes in your teaching career to date. It could be individual students, it could be situations that you dealt with very effectively, It could be resolving something in a very effective way. It is very important to sit down, I would say about 40 achievements. Can I think of 40 times I've achieved success in my teaching and leadership career to date? And that will build your confidence, starting to think back over them, reflecting on them in advance of your leadership interview will be very helpful and very effective. That's number 2. Number 3, practice out loud. This cannot be underestimated in terms of preparing for your interview and making sure that you have prepared from all angles. Many teachers come to me saying, I have read through notes, I've done my research, and often a very important part that's neglected is practicing out loud, finding a person who is good at interviews, who is good at helping teachers see their blind spots when it comes to preparing interview answers. Practicing out loud is very important. You want to sound natural. You want to sound that the information hasn't come across as rehearsed. You certainly don't want to sound like you're reading anything out, that there's vocal variety in there, that there's a smile in your voice as you're speaking and you're talking to the interview panel. So a lot of rehearsal out loud is a very good thing to add to your arsenal of strategies to prepare for interviews. Number 4 is prepare for common questions. So there would be common themes in terms of the looking at our schools document that I would always prepare with my clients. These are, for example, inclusion. How do you include students in teaching and learning? I would include things like effective teaching and learning. Can you tell us of a time that you created a culture of collaboration, innovation, and creativity in teaching and learning? And my client will take out a response from their career, a story from their career that showcases that they have developed that competency and done those things. Interview questions I would also prepare include strengths and weaknesses question. The aim of that is to help my clients develop self-awareness, come to terms with what makes them unique. They often have questions around what's the best strength to have. In my opinion, it is a strength that is authentic to you, because they want to get to know you, the real person, and they will be inferring throughout the interview your other strengths, but there's no right or wrong answer in terms of they're looking for a tick the box there. They really are looking to see, are you a great fit? Are you enthusiastic? How are you treating this opportunity in the interview? And really looking forward to someone who's a great fit for their school. So vocal variety really helps you there. Strengths and weaknesses, questions around pupil voice, parent voice, the big themes that are there in the looking at our schools document. There's 16 of them. I call them the competencies. There are the 4 domains, and they're broken up into 4 statements or 4 standards. From there, you are gathering your stories and making sure that you have a story for each of those competencies. I actually have a very useful tool. It's called the Secret Career Stories, and I'd love to introduce it to you now because it is available. I'm going to leave information in the show notes, and I'm going to leave a link on my website which outlines those 16 stories. It is a brilliant, useful tool that I designed for my one-to-one clients where they have space to focus on what's important. So rather than looking and reading through, looking at our schools many, many times over, there are common questions that are always asked that the Secret Career Stories gathers and connects the STAR technique with the looking at our schools document. So it's very, very handy to have. And you can go to my website, orladempseycoaching.ie, and download it for free from there. It's valued at €79, and you can get it as one of my listeners and one of my followers for free. So head over there and take a look and download that. Number 5 is highlight your strengths. In order to do confident interviews and at leadership level, you will need to know what is different about you than the teacher next door or the leader next door. It shows a great sense of self-awareness and communication skills when you can articulate and think and show them that you've thought about this and the impact that it has on your students, on your school community, and really shows that you have come to terms with what you know that you can bring to their school. Common strengths that teachers come up with include I'm hardworking, I'm passionate, and I'm experienced. You'll want to make sure that you don't use those ones because the teacher after you in the interview may be using exactly the same ones. So delving below the surface will be helpful to you to ensure that you have shown that you have given this greater thought. And there are many ways that you can do this. You can ask those around you. You can ask your friends, your family, your colleagues, can you use 5 words to describe me? You can think of yourself from the perspective of one of your students and say, what 5 words would they use to describe me? You can think of yourself from the perspective of your principal and ask them, what 5 words would you use to describe me? And what you're doing in that case is developing a bank of awarenesses, a bank of qualities that you can use to describe yourself. That in turn will build your confidence. You can reflect and journal on those. Journaling is one of my favorite strategies in order to think and reflect on my key awarenesses, on my strengths and how I'm showing up. And then we can repurpose that for the interview itself if that is asked. In terms of the weaknesses, what you'll want to do is think of a weakness that isn't central to the Looking at Our Schools document, because we all have areas that we're naturally good at and areas to improve. But from a strengths-based perspective, you always want to be building on your strengths and delegating your weaknesses. So you're just showing a sense of self-awareness. You can use a phrase like, there have been times when I've noticed that. Whatever it is that you've observed about yourself, and then you're going to swing it around. However, I've worked on this, and this is what I've done. So you always want to use empowering language at all times during your interview in order to make the best impression possible. So number 5 is highlight your strengths. The next strategy to do a confident interview at leadership level is to stay positive. For so many of my clients going forward for interview after interview, it can be tiring, it can be time consuming, and the energy drops and dips. And it's very hard to come across as positive and as excited about this opportunity. However, from the other side of things, their school is very important to them. This position is very important to them. So it's very important that you come across as positive and enthusiastic and excited. And this will be a wonderful opportunity because I get to use the skills that I developed when I was on secondment. I get a chance to meet new staff members, to share my expertise, and really ramping up that excitement and using it in your tone of voice, because this is a very special opportunity that can change the direction of your career forever. So it's very important to remain positive when you are in that interview setting. The next strategy is to visualize success. It's very important to use techniques. Perhaps you've never used a technique like visualizing success before. Using a wide variety of tools and techniques is a great idea. And NLP gives us a lot of ideas and things that we can do in order to prepare in the most positive and confident way possible. Visualizing success, sitting in that interview seat, closing your eyes, feeling the feelings that you'd like to feel in that interview setting, watching how you are creating rapport with the interviewers, how they're responding positively to the words that you're saying, and listening to the words that you're saying and feeling the wonderful feelings that you're going to feel in that interview situation itself. That can be a great way to align the subconscious with what's going to happen in the interview itself. Even better if you know where you're going to be. You could be seated in the school itself or in a hotel, but it's very important to visualize success and create those feelings of success in advance of your interview. The next strategy is to dress for success. This is a very common question around interview time, is what to wear. My tip for dressing for success is to remain comfortable, to make sure that you're feeling good in your body and what you're wearing and the shoes that you're wearing, so that you can perform and you can let the smile on your face sell yourself as best as possible. So that's the first tip. Make sure that you are feeling comfortable. Personally, I used to wear uncomfortable things to interviews, high heel shoes that were uncomfortable, suits that were uncomfortable, because I thought that that's what people wore. But it is very, very important, because the smile on your face and the comfort that you feel is going to be your best selling point. The second one is to think of the setting itself. What are the interviewers going to be wearing? And mirror what they are going to be wearing. So if they're going to be wearing suits and they're taking things very seriously and they're setting the tone in terms of their expectations, then it's a good idea to feel that you are treating the situation in the same way. I did have a comment from a teacher at one stage saying to remember the setting of the school that you are going forward for. So in a Desh school, they said it probably wouldn't be the best idea to be going draped in gold. So remembering the audience and the organization that you are going, and just putting some thought into how you're dressing up. In terms of the clothes itself, so if it was formal wear, I always find that Marks and Spencer's do great professional looking clothes. Just getting a comfortable suit or a comfortable outfit from somewhere that is professional, and Marks and Spencer's do a great line there. Number 9, manage your nerves. When it comes to preparing your confidence and preparing yourself for interviews, nerves is one of the number one obstacles for my clients when it comes to preparing, or when it comes to doing competent interviews. It is a very, very important opportunity for you, and to acknowledge that the nerves will be there with you. That's completely personal and completely fine to do. It's very, very important in terms of your little inner gremlin will be there with you, sitting on the shoulder. They can come, they can join, but you're not going to listen to them. So remembering your eyes and your awareness and your moving forward, because this is something that's very important to you in your career. And they're there to keep you safe, but at the same time, you want to go forward with your aspirations and your drive to make a change in your life. In order to manage nerves, you can do things like affirmations. You can go for a walk. Think, when you are feeling relaxed, what is it that you're doing, and repeat the same patterns, the same strategies, whether it's talk with a friend. For everyone, it might be slightly different, but to think back for yourself, what is it that you're doing when you are feeling relaxed and calm? And if in the run up to your interview, in the hours leading up to it, that you can do something that replicates that calm feeling, that's a good idea to think about too. And lastly, in order to do a confident interviews using the STAR technique in leadership interviews, to seek feedback and improve. I've lost count of the number of teachers who come to me having tried to do it alone, and they haven't had the feedback, or they didn't receive effective feedback of things that would really allow them to grow. And they come and they get effective feedback. They know exactly what to do, what's positive, what could do with improvement. And feedback is so, so important in order to grow and improve. And anytime that you can reach out to someone whose advice that you admire, especially and value, especially people who know about interviews, whether that be professional mock interviews like myself, or whether that be people perhaps even in marketing, because they are used to hearing positive messages and echoing back what is a powerful message, because really that's what stories are all about. What are the really standout moments in that interview or in your mock interview, and that you can echo them back and dig deeper and improve on those interview answers. That can be a very important thing, is to leave space in your life and in your career for mock interviews, for preparing well in advance. And yeah, it can be a really, really positive thing to do. So there you go. That concludes the first episode of the Growth in Educational Leaders podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. It is a pleasure to be here with you. I hope you picked up some tips in order to do more confident interviews. And I'll be back again next week with more tips for you. Take care.